Hello, and welcome to the Sugar Mama podcast, where I mother the crap out of you. In this show, I talk about all things related to blood sugar with the intent of helping you get the unwanted, extra, dangerous sugar out of your body. I'm Jennifer Hoppert, a certified holistic nutrition therapist, certified dietary supplements professional, and owner of Produce Health Nutrition Company. Produce Health Nutrition creates both individual and corporate health and wellness programs based on science-backed nutrition research. If you want to know more, please check out my website, www.phncompany.com. All right, so welcome to the Sugar Mama podcast. I'm here with my very good friend, Cameron Fear. We've been pals for quite a few years, and I hold him in highest regards. He is one of the smartest, funniest persons I know, and we're going to talk about coaching. So welcome, Cameron. So good to have you. Okay, so let's talk about coaching because I know you have some experience with coaching and some interest in that. And I would like to just tell us how you got into it. How'd you get into coaching? What do you like about it? What are you doing with it?
So I actually started my coaching journey by talking to people. There's a Reddit accountability groups, and there's essentially just loads of people who post, I have this goal. I'm looking for somebody to check in with me daily. And you would eventually get in touch with them. And then once a day, you're checking in with them on the Reddit to be like, hey, did you get your goals done? And then if not, I would sit there and be like, if you want to explore what's getting in your way, I feel totally okay. We can do that. I'll just ask you a couple questions and no right or wrong answers, very open-ended process. And it's just being a mirror for somebody else because it's super helpful to have somebody outside of you help you look at yourself. So that was really my entry into coaching. I'm also looking at going to coaching school, somewhere accredited by the ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation. That would be probably after I get my paralegal associate's degree, that'll be the next degree I'm tackling. So,
Very impressive. Yeah. You know what they say, the grass doesn't grow on a busy street. That must be why you've got so much hair.
I don't wear hats either.
See, right? There's just that would hold in too much heat, too much of that generation heat. Okay. So thanks for giving us a little bit of background about that. So I know that you have looked into the end of history illusion. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Um, and then the future of self-coaching. What is that, and how can I get a piece of that?
So the end of history illusion really was found by an experiment. They took loads of people and split them into two groups. There was predictors and there was responders. So the responders were asked, in the past 10 years, how much have you changed? And they were able to just list off this huge list of things that had changed about themselves. But the predictors were asked, in the next 10 years, how much will you change feasibly? And they couldn't really imagine unless they had practiced some sort of future visualization. You largely think you're going to stay the same in the present moment. It functions as a sort of watershed so that unless you are actively trying to engage with this process on a daily basis of imagining who you're going to become and reverse engineering that from your choices in the now, we let time kind of drag us along into who we're going to become. So, future coaching, like future self coaching, is really taking people and getting them in that mindset of reflect on who you want to be in the future. That way, we have a direction instead of thinking you're going to be who you are and just getting dragged into the future.
As far as, that history of illusion, future self, you really have to kind of create that. Like you have to plan for it, right? You can't just let it naturally happen like you did in your 20s. Like we all did in 20s, right? Like you just fall into the next day, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of natural processes. Like there are coaches who specifically specialize in future self coach or identity shifts. is another way to put it. There's also a technique called backslipping where you get super solid about where you want to be. You write like all 10 bullet points of who that you is 10 years from now, and then you start finding assumptions. What am I assuming that person had to do to get to that spot? And as you inhale those assumptions and make them part of who you are, you will eventually follow that same path.
Very interesting. I like the assumption part because I think I make assumptions all the time. I think a lot of people do, but I think I make assumptions about someone, about myself, about who I should be based on what I see out there in the world. Um, I don't know if that's consciously leading me to what I am today or what I'm becoming. I don't know. That's a really interesting sort of little idea with the assumption part. Okay. So give me a rundown. Give me like if I were a swimming coach and I wanted to have a swimming school in 10 years, what are some of the things that you would coach me towards to help achieve that goal in 5 years? To be the owner of the school, not just the swimming coach right now. Like, can you put that in a real life situation?
Yeah, so the first question I'd probably open up asking is if you owned a swimming school right now, what would you be doing? What does your day look like when you wake up? What's the first thing you're thinking about? Not with regards even to the swimming school, but like, what's your morning routine as the owner of a swimming school? Like, instead of just a swimming coach, there's a small shift that has to happen in your identity right there from I am just a coach to I am the owner of a business. And what are the small things that you're doing throughout the day to make sure that that shift happens?
What if you don't know what it's like to own a school?
Then you experiment. So if you assume from the point of somebody who already owns a business, they had to learn about business. So what are you doing in your life to learn about business? Or you can break it down a different way and kind of go the route of if there was somebody you knew who owned a business, are you actively engaging with them in an entrepreneurial way to be like, hey, what does your day look like? So there's loads of different, it's kind of like a lot of experimentation goes into this, and people who see people who already have it assume that they haven't done that, but they've failed 1,000 times to invent their light bulb. Just like any other Thomas Edison, you kind of have to just be okay with that experimentation process to move from where you are to where you're going. But the important thing is that you know where you're going. So now that you've envisioned what your day is like, I wake up as a swimming coach, I have my coffee, I check my emails. That would be one of the first things I do as an entrepreneur because I need to know what my schedule looks like for the day. I now check my schedule. You may not be doing that as a swimming coach because you only have a couple of clients in mind and you know your schedule for those clients. But if you have thousands of people and you are now managing a business, you would have to have an itinerary. So one of the first things I would do is say, hey, what is your thought process around creating an itinerary look like? How do you need an assistant? Should we start looking at maybe like getting you some outside help and some coaching in specifically business related areas? Or should you take a class on marketing? Because if you're owning a business, you need to market. So there's all these little things that a coach may not be doing for swimming that a business owner for swimming would definitely be doing.
You're coaching the person, not the professional, right? And that's what I think a lot of those, like you said, assumptions, I think a lot of those assumptions, we see somebody who's in the role we want to be, and we figure they're already doing it. They've known how to do it. They didn't, fail 1,000 times. And so that kind of goes back to strip away the person underneath all of that and the issues they have, the education they have on, the role they want to go in, but also, not only do they need to know the business, like you said, but also this is more of like a personal opportunity for coaching them on how to believe in themselves that they can be that person. So it kind of blurs the line between personal and professional, right? So, what's your experience with that? Because now we're talking about personal coaching to reach a goal instead of professional coaching.
For me, coaching is always going to be about the goal. So whether your goal is personal or professional, as a coach, my job is to reflect who you are currently and then give you a reason to think about where you want to go and how you get there. So there's not a lot of difference to me between a personal coach and a professional coach. The only thing that differs is the goal of the person involved. So if you're having professional goals, there's still personal things that we need to handle that are going to shift you from the person you are now to the person who is that professional.
Hmm. So, what kinds of things help shift us? I mean, the first thing I'm thinking about is self-confidence, right? Self-respect, self-confidence, self-esteem, and then once a person overcomes those issues, to even believe that they can do this in the first place. Because I think with coaching, a lot of people are like, yeah, that'd be great. I want to do that. But when it comes down to it, the daily tasks, the challenges that sometimes I'll speak as I'm one of them, we face is, do we really believe, is this part of our identity? How do we make it become our identity if we feel like it's overwhelming? Like, my coaching involves helping people overcome their habits to become healthier with blood sugar. A lot of people think that's great. Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to start exercising and dieting. But then after a while, they start to like kind of lose lose focus, lose momentum, and then they're kind of like, "Oh, I keep failing. Oh, I can't do this." How do you how do you help them? How does coaching help them A, believe that they can do it in those moments when they can't, and where does accountability come into that?
Accountability functions in multiple places, but for me personally as a coach, and this is a big problem that I think many people in the coaching realm have, is having a person first focused approach. So understanding that my client's not here so that I can fix them. They're here so that I can hear them. They're here so that I can see them. And once they feel seen and heard, the changes will happen over time. And that doesn't mean that once they feel seen and heard that everything goes well. It means that when they're having issues, you're there to say, hey, I see you and we're in this together and you're not broken. So coming from a place of, I'm not here to fix you is very important in coaching. Being there for the depth and the flow of the entire wheel as it rolls around is super important. And I think it's a big ticket item that a lot of people miss. But accountability coaching is really humans from the dawn of our invention as a species have worked in groups. And in groups, a huge piece of group work is accountability. So whether you want to admit it or not, implicit to our survival, we were accountable to one another to get certain things done. Ted the blacksmith's got to get his nails done. He is accountable to all the people who want to build houses. Because if Ted doesn't do the nails, the people don't build the houses, and we don't have fire. If it rains, we all catch pneumonia and die. So it's a very simple set of dominoes that if not everybody is stacking their domino properly, the whole tower comes down. So I think accountability is just you being there for somebody, whether it's good or bad. And if it's bad, ask open-ended questions. Actively listen to what their problem is. And with certain specific questions, you can help them see what they're not seeing because they're so inside their mind.
Excellent. I love I love that metaphor. Ted the nail builder,
Yeah.
Ted the blacksmith guy. Um, so that you said the person first approach,
Yeah.
seeing
Person centered.
person centered. Um, I can't help but think it sounds a lot like, and I think we talked about this before, effective parenting, right? I mean, being there in the moment and without judgment, right? Without punishment, and just helping someone process through in that moment. I think that's really powerful. And I don't think a lot of people realize that that's such a humanistic approach to coaching. And to me, just makes me it makes me feel really happy that you have just expressed it that way, because I think when we think of coaching, we think I've got a baseball coach and he's really tough and mean, and or I've got a I've got a my my health coach, and they're going to get mad at me if I eat, donuts, or, my business coach is going to be expect me to be really cool and smart and, aggressive. And maybe it's not like that, right? Maybe it's about like stripping away all those assumptions and being like, I see you as a person and we are working through this together. And so I'm going to help you get through this. And I just really love that because, in my opinion, that's what we're all kind of hiding behind, maybe. We all want to come off as super important and smart and like, I got this, no worries. But coaching is like, it's not, from what you just told me, it's not from a judgmental punishment sort of platform. It's much more supportive.
Your
Am I?
job as a coach is just to hold space, and space isn't tangible. It's hard to hold space. When you have a fire question in your mind and you're so anticipating asking it to your client that you're not really listening to the message that they're sending you, that gets in the way. So, what you need to do is go, I don't need to ask the best questions. I just need to make that person feel like somebody is here for them. And nothing about the open-ended questions are tertiary almost to making somebody feel seen and heard because that's the relationship that fosters most of the growth. A coach's job is just to unlock someone's potential. So like the personal professional line is really blurry because if you have somebody who is trying to be a professional at something, you have to handle the person because they're going to be the one making the professional decisions in a lot of those scenarios. Like take you said baseball coach. If you have a professional baseball player and he needs to function in high pressure situations, millions of fans in a stadium, everybody's sweaty and tired, the person's strength in that scenario is going to decide, is he able to come and collect his mind in the moment where he needs to watch a 90-mile-an-hour ball careen across some plate and hit it at the right moment? That's going to be a lot of working with the person so that they're good at their profession. So even if you're professionally coaching somebody, you're delving into personal issues. The difference between coaching and something like mentoring or therapy is that coaching is very future focused and it's about letting the client come up with their own solutions. That's why you're mostly a question asker. You're mostly just a mirror of reflection. You're helping them reflect on what they want to be and how they want to get there. A mentor would be somebody who is telling you what they've done, or a consultant tells you what to do. But because it's future focused and you're letting them come up with their solutions, it's more of a partnership than anything.
What do people get out of coaching? I know we talked a lot about the support, the, accountability, the insight, the mirroring, the help, clarifying things that we ourselves might be a little bit blind to about ourselves. What about coaching do you think is beneficial for the average person who's just got any kind of goal, whether it's a health goal, professional goal, personal goal? What do you think?
So I think so far as who coaching is truly valuable for, anyone who has a why. So having a goal is one thing, but having a why behind that goal, I think it's Simon Sinek, a great book, The Why of What You Do. If you don't have a reason why you're doing something that truly resonates with you, it's going to be hard for you to show up consistently, especially if you start failing. But coaching is good for anybody because it empowers you to break through barriers, clarify goals, and build momentum with focused support. So a great coach helps you uncover what truly matters. They help you stay accountable and then take action. And it's hard without that accountability, like we were talking about earlier with the early societies and how humans' brains are naturally wired for that accountability to take that action, especially if you're just driving through with no why on pure willpower. It's going to be maddening and probably end in failure. So if you're ready to grow and you have an intention and a why for that intention, hiring a coach could probably be the most valuable investment you could make.
Mm, hmm. Beautiful. Well put. Yeah. I loved when you said that when you it keeps you going when you start to fail, right? That why. Um, and I know I can say I felt that, I felt things starting to unravel when I'm trying to put things together. And I'm like, oh God, this just, you get overwhelmed. You want to just let it go. But then you think of, no, I'm here because I want something. What is my why? And you're right. That does sort of re-solidify, rebuild that foundation and solidify, your meaning, your bigger picture and why you're doing this in the first place. And it's a such an important aspect of coaching and goal setting that I think people kind of lose track of that, especially if they're starting like a business, right? So, nicely put. So, first of all, people have to figure out their why. And I would imagine linking it to something a little bit that has some personal consequences. Maybe it's not really, I don't want to say sense of urgency because I don't want to panic and, make it really dramatic, but that certainly helps. The element of time helps. Like you said, that metaphor of the people are building a house, you got to get the nails done so that you can attach it before the rain comes or the night comes because you don't have fire, we're going to freeze, right? There's that sense of urgency. So, pulling survival into it, pulling safety into it, pulling emotional connection into it, community. And then, I know we discussed in prior conversations, it all boils down to what we need as a person. All of our relationships we have them because they fulfill some kind of personal need. And that might be getting way too deep in a direction we don't want to go just yet. But to me, it kind of pulls in that why. So figure out what your why is, and then understand that coaching can almost just sort of help you catapult over those chasms of issues that you come across,
Well,
the
here's the thing too, Jen. You don't have to have your why and then find a coach. You could always find a coach who specializes in helping you find your why. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to have a why to say, okay, now I'm ready. I can hire a coach. What you need is a coach who's totally there to play that game with you and help you find your why. And then maybe you get a different coach once you know it. Everybody's going to have their utility in a specific situation because we're not broken. We don't need to be fixed. What you need to do is find the matching piece and slowly build your puzzle out.
Shel Silverstein, you know that book,
Maybe.
The Missing Piece? Shel Silverstein wrote a book about the missing piece. This little circle has a little wedge cut out and they can't roll because they're missing their piece. It's a great book. It's a great book. Shel
He's
Silverstein. Love Silverstein.
great author, great author.
Yeah, yeah. But that's what that reminds me of.
I just don't want people to get out there and feel like, oh, I don't know what my purpose is. There's whole echelons of coaches devoted to helping you find your purpose. Like, there's a whole market for people who feel lost, and there's a whole market of coaches that answer that need. So there's definitely no need for a why.
That would be a great graduation gift for a college graduate, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people graduate or they're going through college and they're so young. They're like, I don't really know. Why do I have to decide now? I'm 20 years old when I'm going to do the rest of my life. And so, I talk to a lot of young people and they're kind of freaked out about like they have to commit to something or they don't really know what they want. That's a brilliant gift to either a high school graduate who doesn't know if they should go to school or not, or a college graduate who's like, okay, I got my degree. I just don't know where to go next. I don't know what I want to do, what's important to me. You can grant somebody a gift of a couple coaching sessions or whatever that coach, however they structure their services. But I think that's a really great gift to give to the average, graduate. Don't you think?
Yeah, college graduates entering the workforce, going from I'm here to get the grade to I'm here to make the money. That shift can be consequential and kind of damning when you're not really trained in a way that teaches you why are you at your job. It
Yeah,
just teaches you what the job is. And then you find out 2 years in that it may not be your all fulfilling purpose. And people are
right.
like,
They
I
don't.
paid
Yeah.
$150,000. It needs to be my purpose.
Right.
So and that's like the optics program, which is something I'm slowly building and formulating over time. You start with orientation. Where are you currently at? and then you move into the pivot. So even people changing careers, going from an executive suite to opening their own business, if you find out you're tired of the cutthroat world of dog eat dog contracts and you want to just open a nice pottery shop, what are the slow pivots that you need to make consistently over time? And a coach is the perfect person to help you experiment your way to that answer.
Mm, awesome. Awesome. Or, you know, it maybe I want you have a health goal, right? But you don't know anything about how to do it. There's in science, there's so many different things that are talking about you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to eat this and stop eating that. And, who do you trust and where do you go? And the science is changing. So also, what's the latest science? What's the research showing? I think also that's a great transition into what I'm doing, right? I am trying to promote coaching, and coaching is so important, but it's not just important for health coaching. It's important for life and it's important for happiness. Like you said, you do that job, you join a job, you get a job after college and you're making a lot of money, but 2 years later and you're like, ugh, I am miserable. What's the point of living a life like that, right? I mean, I think you have to enjoy your life or else you're not gonna want to play it out.
You
It's
definitely, if you're not flourishing, you're fading. And there's one of two ways, you know? So if you're not flourishing and you're currently fading, having somebody outside of you to go, hey, why are we fading?
right.
That's the reflection, you know? And then you slowly experiment with ways to start flourishing. And two-thirds of flourishing is how we have fun. And nobody is going around saying, hey, work less, you know, have more fun. Joe Blow, who's working his 90-hour work, you know, like there's whole books on how to flourish that people can definitely hop into. There's the para method in positive psychology, so there's loads of different resources if you want to find out why you're fading instead. But again, a coach is a great person to start working with to go, why? And once you find your why that cures that kind of fade, you can start to flourish. That's why coaching is of tantamount value. It's inevitably probably the best decision some people say they ever make.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking as I'm hearing you talk, and I'm like, everybody should have a coach. In elementary school, we got to dress up like somebody we admired, right? And we wrote our little report, and then there was in the gymnasium, we had our little table, and we were dressed as that person because that's what we were allowed to go to a fun, creative space in our mind and imagine what it would be to be that person, somebody we admired, right? Why did that stop? Why does that stop? They're not doing that in high school or really even in college. So to have that ability to, be allowed, I think coaching also provides the space, the time, the appointment, and the space, and the safe area to be able to kind of go back into that what if? Who do you admire? What would you like to do? What do you feel do you have a calling? And do you feel safe exploring that calling? As well as, geez, how can I just stay disciplined to get from point A to point B? I mean, yeah, I like what you just said. Anybody with a why and anybody who's transitioning or anybody who just feels they want more, personal reward out of life. I highly encourage them to pursue coaching. I always enjoy talking to you. You're such a great combination of creative talker. The conversationalist is always fun because you come up with these really funny little ways of putting things that always make me laugh. Um, you're incredibly intelligent, and then you're also, I think a deeply caring person. You want to see people succeed and be happy, and I just love that combination of you.
Everybody has the right to flourish, and we may not think that these days with just the massive division in our daily lives. And it's not even just here in America, it's global. There are separations that are being taken advantage of. And I think healing those gaps is super important work for us to do. And that's really the job of coach. Where are you? Where do you want to be? Let's heal that gap.
So, do you feel comfortable expressing your personal why?
I know what it feels like to be lost. I know what it feels like to not have a why. And I know how hard it is when you're in that space to admit to somebody else that you don't have a why or that you don't know what it is yet. So that's why I was big in hopping on the bandwagon of you don't need a why for coaching. You need a coach that helps you find your why. And a lot of times, while coaching and therapy are totally different disciplines, having a therapist for me was the first time I had somebody who used coach-esque techniques to help me figure out my purpose. Like, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? And so, while I won't ever say that therapy and coaching are the same, that was the first time I was accountable to somebody who was helping me to start really doing some truly deep reflection and thinking, why am I feeling so lost? Why? And then now that I have my why, I'm 3/4 of the way through paralegal school. I'm definitely flourishing in multiple areas in my life where I was just fading. And for me, it's helping people get rid of the feeling of fate. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. So you can definitely flourish the second you start admitting and using accountability, leverage it to your advantage so that it's helping you instead of hurting you. Nobody does it alone. Nobody does it alone.
Nice. Yes, I'm thinking back to when I first met you. You were a much different person, you know. Not only did you have hair down to your butt, um, you also didn't have any of these aspirations or goals or plan. I mean, you still were your wonderful self and you helped me out a lot. We know that story of your technical expertise and how much you helped me. But I saw you go through a lot of transitions, right? And I can honestly attest to it. You seem so much more calmer, so much more focused and kinder. I will say I can see the kindness in you now. I mean, I always knew it was there, but like the words you're using, the way you're talking, the things you're saying, so insightful and so kind. And I'm just really happy for you.
Well, first, thank you. And again, nobody does it alone. That didn't happen just because I sat and read a self-help book and then all by my lonesome. Like I had other people in my life I slowly had to accrue who helped me build that new me. And a lot of them were in the role of coach. A lot of them were somebody who the 30% of people who are going faster than you first have to admit, I'm not going that fast. And then you have to find ways to catch up.
My idea of coaching is, yes, I want to have a schedule that's more flexible. Yes, I want to, I like to communicate with people. I want to help people with their blood sugar because I want them to be healthier. But also, notching it up, I want them to make better choices in life for themselves in life. And I feel like some of those choices are going to be regarding the food they purchase, which is going to then affect the food market, the food industry in our country, which is going to affect then the way we grow food and the way food is made available in the world. And I think then if we're constantly making better choices for a cleaner, healthier food, cleaner, healthier farming and agriculture, less dollars being put towards chemicals and, corporations poisoning the environment, that eventually this is going to be a trickle up effect to make the earth, a better, healthier place for all of our future generations. So if you walk backward from everything I said, where does it start? It starts with one person making different choices to better their health. And that's where I come in, way at the bottom, This was fun. I had
This is
fun.
great. Yeah, I had fun too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, my friend. Okay. I'll be talking to you soon, okay?
All right.
Jennifer Hoppert is a holistic nutrition therapist, master certified in the state of Colorado. Holistic nutritional therapists are not medical doctors and legally are prohibited from diagnosing, prescribing, or treating disease. Any information you receive from this podcast show should not be assumed as medical treatment and should not replace any medical diagnosis, prescriptions, or treatments from your doctor. Consult with your physician before trying any new supplements or exercise routines.